Why Pro containers are important is because, as you may or may not already know, Ubuntu Pro expands its security coverage to third-party open source software libraries, where regular Ubuntu just relies on the community. So if there is a CVE affecting a third-party package like ImageMagick or specific libraries that are a dependency of your Node.js application, sometimes Ubuntu LTS doesn't cover that and you need to wait for the community to fix it. If you're using a Pro license, Canonical will patch from upstream. It will take the patch and fix the CVE for you. I'm going to show a very simple PHP container. I'm going to show you how to create it because in our official documentation and in previous videos, we have shown different ways to create Pro containers. And now with the latest release of the Pro client tool, it is even easier. One important thing to notice is that in order to run a Pro container, you need to run it on a Pro cluster, which means that every host in your EKS cluster has to be Pro, or even on an ECS cluster. They have to be Pro in order to be compliant with the licensing model of Ubuntu Pro. I have my Ubuntu Pro server already running. I just launched it. It is based on Ubuntu Pro Server 2404. You can launch it here using the easy to launch console. You click here on the Ubuntu family, and you have Ubuntu Pro here, Ubuntu Pro Server 2404. Since I already created my instance, I'm just going to log in into that machine. I'm going to open my terminal. You can see that this is an Ubuntu Server 2404 with Pro status. You can see Pro has been successfully enabled on this machine. Lightpatch is running, and ESM apps and infra are enabled too, which means that I'm getting security coverage for third-party open source software. I have here a repository with a lot of examples of things that you can do with Ubuntu on AWS. I'm going to clone that repository. CD Ubuntu Pro containers. This example only have two files. One is a Docker file, the definition of the container to build it, and the other is index.php. Let me show you index.php. We have a lot of CSS to make it look nice. But then the important part of the container is that it will show me host information, what is running on the host. Of course, this is a bad practice, but only for the sake of the example, it makes sense. And here it will show you all the packages that have been installed inside the Pro containers that contains the ESM version on it, which means exactly which packages are fixing a CVE that is not available on regular Ubuntu LTS, but only on Ubuntu Pro subscriptions. Let me show you the Docker file. The Docker file is a regular Docker file that takes a base, install a bunch of libraries, copies the index.php file, and starts Apache on the foreground. But the important thing is that I have the instructions here, is that just to build it, you need to grab a token from the host. That is why this is Ubuntu Pro server. You grab the token, you store it in an environment variable, and then you build it, passing that token as a build argument to the container. Once you start building it, you will see here that there is one command that says pro attach with the token. Pro attach means attach the license of Ubuntu Pro, and then the rest is everything transparent to you. Because once you run the attach of this token, it will enable the ESM repositories, and it will install all the packages you have here, but also will grab the latest versions with the patches from ESM if there is any available. All right, so let's copy the same instructions. I'm getting the token here, and I need to build it using this. And the container is going to be called my container, if you remember. Okay, I don't have Docker, of course. Let's install it in a very simple way. All right, it is installed. Let's repeat the build process. It will start pulling the base image of 2204. It could be 2404, of course, but just for the sake of the exercise, I'm using that version. It is pulling all the packages. Let me show you the Docker file. You can see here that it is also installing the Ubuntu Advantage tools that now it's called Ubuntu Pro tools. You can see them with those two names are the same. It will attach the token. And then, as I mentioned before, it will install the packages here. To go back to the build process, and it ran the Pro attach already with the token. Let's pause the video for the sake of time. Build process is done. We are finished. We have the image. Now we need to run it. Sudo docker run. Let's do some port forwarding. The container is running on the port 80, and it was my container. Okay, it should be running. Let's go back to EC2, copy the address. I'm opening a new window, and this is on port 8080. Okay, this is the PHP. You see that it has some nice layout next to CSS. This is the host information because I was calling uname-a. This is the host. The host is running a kernel that is from Ubuntu 2404. But what is inside the container, a distro that identifies itself as 2204 Yummy Jellyfish. And this is the interesting part. If you remember on the PHP file, let me open the PHP file. The PHP file had this very interesting part that will list all the packages installed that had ESM on the name. If I hadn't attached the token to this container, I wouldn't have got all of these patches, and probably my container would have known CVEs being flagged with the security tools like Amazon Inspector and others. Thanks to Ubuntu Pro, I got these patches and I have a more secure container. Very important, I'm going to repeat myself. In order to run a Pro container, you need to run it on a Pro cluster, which on EKS is easy because you can launch an Ubuntu Pro cluster using EKS Cattle, the default EKS tool. There are other alternatives like using CloudFormation templates, you change the AMI to the Ubuntu Pro EKS and so on. For production, you are seeing a container that is being run on a single host, but you should be pushing this image to an ECR private repository, and from that private repository, you could be deploying it on your Pro cluster on EKS, for example. That is the right way to do it. We could cover it in another video in the future. And that's it. I hope you have enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.